Alex Collier was 8 years old when his family gathered for a picnic near Woodstock, Michigan. While the adults set up for the picnic, Alex wandered towards the woods. What should have been a few harmless minutes became hours as neighbors joined the search and police combed through the woods after dark. When Alex was finally found, he could only shrug when asked where he had been. He didn't remember leaving the woods, he didn't remember meeting anyone. For years, that afternoon remained a blank page in his childhood. The memories, he would later say, returned only in fragments, a white light, the feeling of lying somewhere unfamiliar. Then, piece by piece, the rest emerged. The forest was gone. Standing beside him were two figures unlike anyone he had ever seen. One was tall, pale blue, and almost human except for his eyes. The other appeared older, with long white hair falling across her shoulders. He felt something stranger than fear. It was an instant recognition, as if he had known them for years without remembering their faces. Until that moment. Soul level familiarity. Neither spoke, they didn't have to. Their thoughts arrived fully formed inside Alex's mind, as though language itself had become unnecessary. And before Alex could ask a single question, Morini placed a metal cap over Alex's head. It was cool to the touch at first, then warm, as if it were waking up. And in an instant, Alex was no longer in the room. He was everywhere. Stars ignited, worlds collapsed, time unraveled. And then, without a single word, they began showing Alex the history of the universe. The white light vanished so completely that Alex could no longer tell whether his eyes were open or closed. There was only darkness. It was vast, silent, and empty. The darkness disappeared quickly. The walls around Alex seemed to turn to liquid, melting into three-dimensional movie screens that surrounded him. Images appeared around him, not dreamlike, but real history being played back in real time. A single point of light appeared on the screen, then another, and another. In moments, the darkness gave way to an endless ocean of stars as galaxies unfolded across the void. Morini spoke little. He mostly watched Alex's reactions. It was Vases who narrated what Alex was seeing, her voice in his mind as the walls revealed the past. Then he noticed something impossible. Earth was nowhere to be found. The world he had always called home didn't exist. Long before humanity's story began, other civilizations had already crossed the stars, built worlds of their own, and vanished into history so ancient they had nearly been forgotten. The beings drew Alex's attention to one small region of the galaxy that remained illuminated. According to Alex, this was where everything began, and the people he saw had a name. They were called the Founders. The endless procession of stars gradually slowed until the beings guided Alex's attention toward one small corner of the galaxy. At first, he searched for a planet, then a star. Rather, he found a civilization. Cities stretched across countless worlds in a way that made it impossible to tell where nature ended and civilization began. Rivers still wandered freely. Forests reached the edge of towering structures. Nothing about it resembled the great empires humanity would one day build. Almost without realizing it, Alex began looking for the signs every powerful civilization seemed to leave behind. Signs of defense, he found none. There were no fleets waiting above their cities, no weapons pointed towards enemies, no evidence that anyone feared invasion. Whatever these people had become, their greatness had been measured by something other than conquest. Then the beings gave them a name, the Founders. According to Morini and Vasis, the Founders, the Patal, were not gods, but ancient engineers who treated star systems like laboratories. The vision shifted to a lifeless planet circling a distant star. The Founders spent 21 billion years overseeing a universe of dead worlds slowly turned into living ones. By the time the vision accelerated once more, one living world had become hundreds. Civilization after civilization would inherit a galaxy they believed had always been waiting for them. It hadn't. Someone had prepared it. Then the countless worlds disappeared. Only one remained, an ordinary star. But the beings impressed upon Alex that everything about to happen would begin here. This was Lyra. The countless worlds prepared by the founders faded into darkness until one star remained, Lyra. The word entered Alex's mind, and the vision dropped him into a living world. Iris stood at the kitchen counter, sealing a travel pouch, while Taryn checked the comm display for the third time that evening. Mira was supposed to be asleep, but she hovered in the doorway instead, listening to her parents pretend this was just another ordinary night. Lyra felt permanent. So did the people who lived there. The Vales did not think of themselves as special. They were doing what everyone else was doing: packing, planning, working. They were calling relatives to the next colony and trying to keep the routine intact. That was the point. Their brother and cousin and their friends on all the other worlds. They were all still out there, just one message away. The distance was not calculated. Then the first call failed. Taryn frowned and tried again. Nothing. Iris sent a second message. There was no reply. Mira asked if the connection was broken, and neither parent answered. They checked the display. Still nothing. Then the news spread through the block. A distant colony had gone silent. At first, that meant delay, a comm failure, a relay problem, something temporary. So the Vales kept waiting. Then another world stopped answering. Then another. The message to their relatives went unanswered. The names on the screen stayed lit, but the voices, they never came back. What had been routine moments before suddenly felt wrong. Taryn kept refreshing the terminal. Iris kept staring at the last transmitted line. Mira asked the same question over and over, each time quieter than the last. By the time the first ships appeared, too many worlds were already gone, and when the fleets arrived, many thought help had finally come. The transmissions were calm. The offer was simple: join or be taken. Some worlds surrendered, others refused. The ones that refused burned, and Lyra started to burn too. The skyports filled fast. Families pushed towards the terminals. Parents carried sleeping children while elders clutched what little they could still hold on to. The boarding alarm sounded again. The line moved. The doors opened. The family stepped inside with everyone else, carrying fragments of the lives they were leaving behind. Then the ships rose, and through the windows, Lyra fell away beneath smoke and cloud. Its towers shrunk, its streets faded. The lights dimmed until the world itself became only a point of light in the dark. Then that light went out. Alex understood what he was watching. It wasn't the end of a civilization, but it was the moment humanity learned how to run. And somewhere beyond the dark, something was already moving. Alex watched the darkness between the stars begin to move. At first, the shapes looked like debris. Then one became 2, then 10, then 100. The void did not stay empty, it filled. Ships emerged in formation, precise and silent. There was no drift or panic, no wasted motion, just one advancing tide. And with it came the silence. On one world, a brother never answered a call. On another, a daughter's message stopped halfway through a sentence. A cousin waited by a terminal screen that never lit back up. The same thing kept happening. At ground level, life kept trying to continue. People were working while families were waiting. Officials blamed relay failures. Dock crews checked the systems. Loved ones stayed awake through the night, staring at the dead comms and refreshing the same blank channels over and over again. Then the local networks failed. The lights went out, and all at once, the world stopped answering. Alex felt the pattern before it was explained. This was not a sudden invasion. This was a harvest of silence. Only then did Vasace speak the name, the Siakar, an ancient reptilian civilization from Alpha Draconis, the enemy of human lineages. Where the founders shaped worlds, the Siakar took them. Their message was simple: join or be taken. Some worlds submitted before the first weapons were ever fired, hoping obedience might spare their people. Others refused, and those who refused vanished. Their names disappeared from the trade lanes, their stations went dark. Their borders were erased so completely they seemed to fall out of history itself. And still the Empire kept moving, one system at a time, one colony, one civilization. Until resistance became rare, until fear became the routine. The stars themselves seemed to know who was coming. Alex searched the darkness for the moment the tide would turn. He never found it. No final battle, no miracle, no last stand waiting in the smoke. Lyra was not remembered because humanity won. It was remembered because enough people escaped. The ships scattered in every direction, engine trails stretching thin across the galaxy until the Great Exodus itself began to disappear into distance. One by one, those trails faded. One by one, the ships vanished, until only one path remained. One ordinary yellow star, one young blue world, still untouched, still waiting. Humanity had not been erased, it had been scattered, and the road through the darkness led, at last, to Earth. The stars faded until only one world remained, an ordinary blue planet circling an ordinary yellow star. After everything Alex had seen, it should have been forgettable. The beings said nothing, they only let him watch. Time rushed forward, oceans formed, mountains rose, ages passed in bursts. Then the first visitors arrived. Alex expected them to claim the planet. They never did. No cities or monuments, there was no obvious mark from orbit. They came to observe, then they came back, and back again. Across different ages, different civilizations returned to the same quiet world, each one drawn here for reasons that no one could explain. Earth was not just habitable, it was important. It was being watched and measured, held in place by something Alex still could not name. And then the pattern snapped into focus. The founders, Lyra, the exile, Earth. None of it had been separate, none of it random. Every road had led here, not to a home, but to a threshold. And as Alex stared at the blue world hanging in the dark, one thought settled over him like a warning. Whatever Earth was for, it was about to be used. Earth was no longer empty. The first fully self-contained biosphere had a name, Eden. Built in what is now New Mexico-Arizona border region, it was established nearly 900,000 years ago as a controlled research colony, a place to study Earth's geology, atmosphere, and life before the world was ever treated as home. And Eden was only the beginning. Across the planet, new settlements appeared in deserts and mountains and forests. Not one great civilization, many separate enclaves, different architectures, different languages, different customs. Each one arriving with its own history, its own memory, its own people. The planet was not being left alone, it was being filled. Over unimaginable spans of time, lineages from 22 extraterrestrial races converge on one single world, with the Lyrians forming the core of humanity's bloodline. Moraine laid out the part Alex struggled to process most. Humanity was not a single origin species. It was patchwork. There was one world, but 22 lineages, one gathering point. The settlements that once seemed isolated were not random at all. They were converging. Earth was no longer a frontier, it was being arranged, prepared, shaped into the place where scattered bloodlines could meet again. And that was the real problem. Because if someone brought all these lineages together on one world, they were not just building a population, they were building something else. Then Alex felt it, and for the first time the world was no longer hidden. Someone else had noticed what Earth had become. Earth continued changing. Generations were born beneath its skies instead of the stars their ancestors had once called home. Languages shifted, traditions blurred, the old worlds faded into the story. But the experiment kept going, and then the sky filled with ships again. Not all of them were arriving for the first time, some were already here. Alex watched the planet from above as settlements spread across deserts and forests. Different people, different histories, different bloodlines. But they were no longer scattered. They were being drawn together. Earth was no longer a frontier, it was becoming a convergence point. And that was when the wider powers noticed. The Siakar were still expanding. Their empire had not slowed. Earth was no longer just another world to them. It was becoming a problem. Then came the Council. 139 star systems brought together to decide how far the Siakar could go before someone stepped in. And Earth split them. Some said to protect it because what was happening there was rare, too rare to lose. Others said leave it alone, because interference would only make it worse. A few said to use it. If all those lineages were converging there anyway, then Earth was no longer just a planet. It could be used as a tool, maybe even a weapon. And the ones who feared it most said destroy it. Before it became a threat nobody could control. That was the real fight, not just over Earth, over what Earth was becoming. Alex felt the weight of it all settle over the vision. The council was not debating some random world. They were debating a world being prepared, a world being shaped for something none of them fully understood. And then the beings turned toward Alex. Between them, the answer waited. One bloodline remained, not hidden or forgotten, but chosen. And whatever came next was already waiting for him on Earth. Stories of distant worlds slowly became stories of heaven. Ancient visitors became angels. History faded into myth until no one could remember where the stories had begun. Then Alex noticed something. The rulers were never alone. Standing just beyond the throne were the same visitors he had watched arrive on Earth ages before. Sometimes they whispered into the ears of kings. Sometimes they stood behind queens. Sometimes they remained almost invisible.
My loyal subjects, the stars are aligned, and our destiny calls us to expand.
A ruler who believes an idea is his own needs no army standing outside the gates. The vision dissolved. Earth drifted along through the darkness. Then Alex saw something waiting above it, perfectly still, watching. Alex looked at the moon. The moon hung motionless against the darkness. After everything Alex had witnessed, it should have seemed insignificant. He had watched galaxies collide, civilizations spread across the stars, entire worlds disappear into history. Yet the gray sphere suspended above Earth held his attention more completely than any of them. It wasn't another distant world, it was home. Every civilization he had just watched unfold had lived beneath its light.
Have you ever wondered why it's there?
The familiar craters dissolved beneath his gaze. Mountains became translucent until the moon itself seemed to peel away layer by layer. Beneath the scarred surface lay immense chambers, stretching beyond the limits of his vision. Passageways crossed the lunar interior in every direction. Nothing resembled a natural cavern. Everything looked constructed, ancient. The beings offered no explanation, they simply allowed him to look. Only after Alex absorbed the scale of what lay beneath the surface did another understanding settle into his mind. The moon had not been brought here to create life, it had been placed here to observe it. The vision carried him deeper. Enormous observation chambers overlooked the Earth below. Craft arrived and departed through concealed openings beneath the lunar surface. Vast instruments operated continuously, collecting information from the blue world suspended beyond enormous viewing galleries. This wasn't a fortress, it was a station. A place where many civilizations could quietly observe humanity without revealing themselves. Then the vision changed again. Alex watched astronauts crossing the moon's surface, believing they had arrived somewhere untouched. He watched them look out over the black and assumed they were alone. They were not. And then the scene broke open once more. The moon slowly rotated beneath him until Earth filled the darkness again. From this distance, every nation disappeared, every border vanished. Every empire he had watched rise and fall became invisible against the blue oceans below. Humanity looked impossibly small. And then the beings forced one more truth into his mind. They had not been alone. The vision offered no documents, no recordings, no proof, only the quiet certainty that the official story ended long before the journey itself had. The moon slowly disappeared into darkness. Time accelerated once more. Information crossed the planet in moments. New discoveries transformed the world faster than previous generations could imagine. Humanity had become more connected than ever before. With that connection came uncertainty. Fear spread as quickly as knowledge. Old institutions struggled to keep pace with rapid change. The beings never suggested civilizations were ending, they suggested they were changing. Only then did Alex understand why the journey had begun with the birth of the stars instead of the birth of humanity. The founders, Lyra, the scattering, Earth, the moon, None of these stories have been shown to tell him what the future would be. They had always been shown to remind him that every civilization eventually reaches a moment when its future can no longer be inherited. It has to be chosen. Before everything vanished, the beings left Alex with one final understanding.
The future is not guaranteed like the past. Kings and kingdoms fall, Alex. For the future of humanity belongs to the participants. The future of humanity belongs to you.
Alex Collier has an amazing story, but is it true? Well, the story spans 92 days aboard a 900-mile wide mothership that has 24 levels, sunrise and sunset cycles, and in 1989, while spending 92 days aboard the ship, only 18 minutes passed on Earth. On the day of the abduction, Alex claims he was at a picnic with his family. There are no police reports, news reports, or any record of a missing child search that day. Nothing matching his description exists mainstream, meaning we are already off to a rough start. Alex Collier is not actually Alex Collier. His real name is Ralph Amigron, a former IRS revenue officer. We know this because in 1991, Ralph, was convicted in a fraud case involving false professional credentials and false social security information. So no, that doesn't work either. For more than 30 years, Alex has described repeated meetings with extraterrestrial beings. There are no photographs, no artifacts, no documents, or evidence that confirms these encounters actually took place. Alex said humanity originated in the Lyra star system. Now, a side note, this channel is going to cover a lot of different stories, so I don't want this debunked to be, hey, we will never do this in a million years, because there are so many good stories. This one I have to tear apart. Today, the evidence, though, points modern humans to Africa roughly 300,000 years ago. Alex describes the moon as an observation station, and again, we're going to do an episode on the moon, and there are more questions than answers when it comes to the moon. But for this story, there is no proof of this being the case in this specific file. So what about all of his claims? Humanity's ancestral home, artificial and hollow moon, higher density consciousness. All of those things had already been discussed for decades before Alex Ralph Collier surfaced. And the history of the extraterrestrials, well, it's pretty much just created by him. There is also his record of predictions. Across decades of lectures, Alex made numerous specific predictions that he said came to him directly from the extraterrestrials he met with, including the idea that the moon would disappear from orbit in 2003 and that extraterrestrial presence would be removed from Earth and near-Earth space by August 12th of that year. Many of those date-specific predictions never occurred as described. He's basically the cosmic version of a friend who keeps saying this year is different every January. Now, that doesn't prove the story never happened, but it does mean it remains what Alex always said it was, his account. And maybe that is enough to remind us that the future still belongs to us, and that every day we're given a chance to make it matter. I'll see you next Tuesday.